But that's where Tucker Carlson enters the story. Now, since his exit from Fox News in 2023, when, of course, he was a very, very popular host, Tucker Carlson has turned himself into a conspiracist and a crank and a pathological liar. Tucker excuses Vladimir Putin's murderous and barbarous reign. He has even become one of his most ardent defenders.
It is so much nicer than any city in my country. I had no idea. My father spent a lot of time there in the 80s when he worked for the US government and barely had electricity. And now it is so much cleaner and safer and prettier aesthetically. It's architecture, it's food, it's service, than any country, city in the United States that you have to, and this is non-ideological. How did that happen? How did that happen? And at a certain point, I don't think the average person cares as much about abstractions as about the concrete reality of his life. And if you can't use your subway, for example, as many people are afraid to in New York City because it's too dangerous, you have to sort of wonder, like, isn't that the ultimate measure of leadership? And that's true, by the way, it's radicalizing for an American to go to Moscow, I didn't know that, I've learned it this week, to Singapore, to Tokyo, to Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Because these cities, no matter how we're told they're run and on what principles they're run, are wonderful places to live.
So I guess you put in 10 rubles here and you get it back when you put the cart back. So it's free, but there's an incentive to return it and not just bring it to your homeless encampment. I went from amused to legitimately angry. So we were guessing what this would cost. Everybody hears from the United States, buys groceries, and we didn't pay any attention to costs as we were just putting in the cart what we would actually eat over a week. And we all came in around $400, about $400. It was $104 US here. And that's when you start to realize that ideology maybe doesn't matter as much as you thought, corruption. If you take people's standard of living and you tank it through filth and crime and inflation, and they literally can't buy the groceries they want, at that point, maybe it matters less what you say or whether you're a good person or a bad person. You're wrecking people's lives in their country, and that's what our leaders have done to us.
When Tucker Carlson interviewed Vladimir Putin, by the way, Vladimir Putin was so amused by Tucker Carlson's easy questioning that he actually mocked him. Tucker Carlson has massaged the Iranian dictatorship and admitted to not asking any difficult questions of the president of that dictatorship.
The interview is limited by a couple of factors. One, it was done by remote through a translator. That's always awkward. For another, I don't speak Persian. And there are all kinds of questions that I didn't ask the president of Iran, particularly questions to which I knew I could not get an honest answer, such as, was your nuclear program totally disabled by the bombing campaign by the U.S. government a week and a half ago? There's no chance he's going to answer that question honestly. I didn't bother to ask it. The answer, in fact, from an American perspective, even from the CIA's perspective, is unknowable.
Tucker bizarrely worships at the altar of Qatar.
They're mad at you because you don't put your parents in some institution. Maybe they're trying to break up your families.
Well, it can be a reason. Honestly, I don't know what is really the purpose behind this, but we see that, you know, a lot of things that are happening are attacks on humanity in general. It's when you lose the family value, when you lose the connection between the family themselves, you will lose the connection between the people as well, on a broader level, on the people in the same neighborhood, on the people in the same region, in the same countries. And that's basically will just make us, you know, as individuals who are quote unquote independent from anyone, that's what we will feel. Yet it will just make our societies vulnerable and easy to be penetrated.
That's right.
Tucker Carlson praises Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro, even as Maduro keeps the entire country in communist penury and ships fentanyl into the United States to kill Americans by the hundreds of thousands.
Why are we so opposed to Nicolas Maduro? So if you ask someone on the street, random person, why are we against Nicolas Maduro? The answer you're going to get is, who's Nicolas Maduro? But if you find someone in South Florida, for example, who knows who Nicolas Maduro is, who can identify where Venezuela is on a map, that person will almost certainly say, well, because he's a communist or a socialist, he's exceedingly left-wing, and that is true. Nicolas Maduro and his government are very left-wing on economics, not on social policy, by the way, which is kind of interesting. In Venezuela, gay marriage is banned, abortion is banned, sex changes for transgenderism are banned. It's one of the very few countries in the entire hemisphere with those policies. It is on social policy not defending the regime, just saying one of the most conservative countries in North or South or Central America. Only El Salvador really comes close.
Tucker Carlson glosses Hamas, the genocidal jihadi group behind October 7th, as a political organization.
You can't claim that they're in Hamas while simultaneously claiming that Hamas is a group of jihadis. They're Islamic extremists, which they also claim constantly, which I don't know if that's true, by the way. It seems more like a political organization, but whatever it is, they're telling us constantly they're Al-Qaeda.
Tucker Carlson has attacked President Trump as a cover-up artist for sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein on behalf of Israel and Mossad, making sure, of course, never to mention President Trump's name, because, of course, Tucker's a coward.
I think so far, Ben Shapiro has made some very valid points. And I think that Tucker Carlson should have challenged Nick Fuentes on all these things that Ben was pointing out in this video. But I also think that the whole idea of the interview wasn't about that. When people want to talk with other people, they have their own reasons for doing so. They have their own interests, right? You cannot just tell someone that you expected them to, or maybe you want them to ask someone certain questions. Ben also has a huge platform, right? If Ben wanted to challenge Nick Fuentes on all these horrible viewpoints that he shared in this video, he can always invite Nick Fuentes, right? He can always have a debate with him and they can hash it out. I know some people have this policy of not talking with people whom they think are deplorable or are horrible or have some very terrible viewpoints. Like this journalist Mehdi Hassan has made it very, very clear that he believes in free speech, he believes in talking to the other side, but he has limits, and that there are certain people with certain viewpoints that he will never, ever engage in a conversation with them. Some people are like that. So I don't know if Ben Shapiro also has that viewpoint, that he will not talk to people whose viewpoints are so terrible. Maybe. The only way he can get this clear out is just to invite Nick Fuentes onto his platform. Or maybe not just, if he doesn't want to be with him in person, that is fine. They can do it online via the internet, and he will have this opportunity to challenge Nick Fuentes on all those horrible viewpoints that he just shown us. I think that would be a very, very interesting conversation to have. But to sit on his show and try to pinpoint certain things that he thought Tucker Carlson was supposed to do or not do, to me doesn't make any sense. And one other thing, Tucker Carlson has always done what benefits Tucker Carlson. That is the truth. And that is with most humans. People think that Tucker Carlson is just becoming who he's becoming now, are fooling themselves, or maybe did not want to face reality when it favors them. That is why I am all against the whole canceling people or censoring people. Because when you do that, it's just a matter of time before that same system is turned on against you. I tell people that I am from Africa and I see how we Africans are being censored. There are so many things we are not allowed to talk about. And those people who are in charge of making sure that people don't talk are very happy to do so now, because the law is in their favor, because the things we talk about are the things that they are against. So they are very happy to put the hammer down on us. But I tell them just one thing, that you might thought that you are doing a great service right now by trying to suppress us, trying to take away our right to freedom of speech. But remember, it is just a matter of time before that same hammer is turned onto you. It is just a matter of time before you start feeling the same heat that we are now feeling. The system always need an enemy. They always need an enemy. Today, we might be the enemy, but remember, tomorrow you might become one. When Tucker Carlson was saying only things that were against the left, the Republican Party cheered him up. People in the right celebrated him. They all love him. Until he started asking questions about the state of Israel, about the IDF, and about how America should spend their taxpayers' money on Americans and in America, and not give it to a foreign nation. When he started questioning the loyalty of dual citizenship, that was when people who are fond of the state of Israel and the IDF became outraged. And the nail that sealed the coffin was the interview with Nick Fuentes. That hasn't gone well in the conservative circle. Tucker has always done what benefit Tucker. That is it. When he was at Fox News, he said what he needed to say. And now that he is independent, he will say what he needed to say. That is the truth.